We're back again, Schultzy. It's the Two Ordinary Cops, mate. How are you?
Yeah, good mate. Cruising along pretty well. We've managed to get through Christmas and we're heading into New Year's. But and mate, it's another. What have I got? 3 days till 4 days till I stop drinking for 3 months with my usual rigmarole. So
Yeah.
you're going to be a bit disappointed about that.
Good luck with that, mate. All the best. Yeah.
uh, Mate, and I believe we have some sad news today. You
Yeah,
want
mate.
to?
Just on Christmas night, one of our mates, Jonas Johnson, Senior Connie in Northern Territory, passed away. But looks like some kind of medical episode. So a bit sad for us. We've worked with Jonas in Catherine. He was an ACPO to start with, so an Aboriginal community police officer. He did the conversion course, became a constable, and he's worked in Catherine, Timber Creek, places like that. I don't know exactly where else he's worked. I know he was Darwin City for the last few years, and a very well liked bloke. Just a really good knockabout level fella. Always just keeps it light, does his job, would do anything for anyone. Was a very very good bush cop. Knew what he was doing out there. So it was a bit sad to hear that on Boxing Day morning. So he was out with family at Daly River, and something's obviously gone wrong out there. So
Yeah,
yeah, bit of sad
it's
news. We've got a photo. Actually, he was at the Darwin City Christmas party 2 weeks ago. So
yeah.
we were having a few beers with him. So it's a bit sad,
Well,
mate.
that was two weeks ago today.
Yeah,
Yeah, we got
yep,
that photo from. So I mean, it was probably fortunate we got to catch up with him. But rest in peace, mate. I
yeah,
still remember he was. I think it was actually our first day when we went out on the road. He was showing us around and helping us out, tipping out grog and all that sort of thing, if I remember correctly. But
yeah.
it's
I
a long
can't
time
remember
ago.
exactly. Mm. So
So
yeah, a bit sad there, but yeah, I know that he'll be missed up there. He's pretty popular. The plenty of comments on Facebook. He's obviously a well liked bloke. So a bit of sadness there, but anyway, mate. What's the story
yeah.
today? What are we up to?
Well, mate, we've had a few people come in actually. Even though, excuse me, everybody, sorry, I'm just getting over the flu. Well, I think it's flu. It could be COVID, but I doubt it. It didn't feel like COVID, but maybe I should get myself tested.
He's got a
Um,
sniffle.
yeah, I have got a sniffle. Yeah, I'm not that bad. Mate, I'll just touch on quickly. There was somebody that asked, and I do. Please forgive me. I get that many messages from so many different places, and I was trying to find it this morning and I couldn't. But somebody asked, so I know we spoke about youth crime before, and we touched on it and some of the problems. And poor old Damo, you went on a bit of a rant because it obviously touches a nerve with just about any police, I think, that work youth crime. But they just asked, like, what would you do to solve it? And I'll say this. I'll say, look, it is so complicated that there is so many different areas, and we've spoken about the separation of powers and all that sort of thing. So you've got to have the legislative assembly is probably the most important to make sure the laws and everything reflect what we can dish out in punishment or rehabilitation and all that sort of thing. So that's the most important thing. I will touch on that they sit there and say, like they can make, say, unlawful, no, criminal damage. They can take it from 7 years to 14 years. That doesn't make an ounce of difference unless the magistrates actually have the room to either put them in jail or put them into rehabilitation. It doesn't. It sounds good, and the people sit there and go, "Oh yeah, they're really doing something." But unless you can actually dish out those sentences and have the ability to either rehabilitate or put them in prison, it doesn't matter jack shit. The thing is, they all need to work together, and I know a lot of people blame the courts, and I'll be probably one of the first one in my time in prosecuting. The magistrates are constrained by the law as well on what they can deal with. So they're trying to do the best they can. And the police, I mean, it's like a revolving door, Damo. I think you'd agree with that.
Oh yeah,
Um,
I mean we've sort of flogged it. The thing you can't police. It's not just policing. It's um, you forget the government. People have to raise decent kids. There's never.
yeah,
There's always going
yes,
to be that issue. There's going to be people who have children, neglect them, abuse them, whatever else. Those kids grow up with
yeah,
angry and all the rest of it, and it grows from there. So I think we have flogged on about because I think there was a question, wasn't it? There was a bit of a
yeah,
Q and
mate.
A.
Yeah,
But sorry,
it's just like, and the thing is, I think what I just want to get across, it's so complicated. I've had people ask me, it's extreme, like you said, it's how people raise their kids, it's how they're actually taught in school. Like, so it goes through the education system as well. And I know teachers are trying to battle on as much as they possibly can, but it comes into early intervention. It comes into being able to actually, put these kids behind bars, especially the bad ones, because they're going to continue to do it. But it also comes with, you need to rehabilitate at an early age when they start this sort of behaviour off. But yeah, I mean, I think you'd agree. It's just so complicated. It's just so difficult to try and get your head around. The one thing I will say is, in my point, raising the age of criminal responsibility is not going to work. You just need rehabilitation and early intervention. And if you raise the age, you can't implement that. That's my belief. And the other thing I'll say is, if legislation or politicians going to bring this stuff in, at least give it time to work and actually put everything else surrounding it to make it work. The problem is, a lot of the time I see they put in just one thing and then they don't support it with anything else. So it's always doomed to fail. But yeah, mate, I think you're right. We've flogged a dead horse there.
Yeah. The old youth crime. It's just one of those frustrating things. But yeah, we have spoken about, for those interested, we have, if you haven't already noticed, we do a whole episode on youth crime. If you're interested in that, have a listen. But I think the big thing, the pull out of that was that we don't have the answers. There's a lot to it. But yeah, I think we can move on, mate. But it's
Yeah.
yeah, good old youth crime. Yeah. It's
Otherwise,
always topical.
we'll get you on a rant again, Damo.
Oh no, it's always topical. Yeah. So yeah, I think that what we're doing today is it's like a little Q&A times two, like the second Q&A. So we've had a few
Yep.
people, like we're getting quite a lot of contact now from people. So, and we really
Yep.
like that. If you want to hear about something and for whatever our opinion's worth, let us know. It might be things that are technical and we can explain them. It might be something we don't know about and we put it out and maybe get the answer off somebody who's listening, or we do some research and find out. So
Yep.
that's what we're up to today. So, someone had contacted you asking about youth crime? Is that the solution to it?
Yeah, mate. Yeah. So basically, I think they listened to the one on youth crime and just if we had any thoughts on how to actually solve it. But I think we've said there's no silver bullet. It's so
Yeah, no,
complex, and you need just about every government agency working together to make it work. And they need a firm plan. It needs to be in for. It's going to take decades. And
yeah,
like you said, parents need to bring up their kids better.
yeah,
I mean, you can see. I mean, I see a lot of families, and I used to sit there. I used to go back to my friends back in Brisbane, and I used to sit there and say it was really good for me because I see the worst side of juveniles, in the job, especially around Catherine and all that sort of thing, and
mm,
and neglect and all that sort of thing. And it was nice to go back to families where they look after their kids, they discipline them, and discipline doesn't mean physical; it just means they've got rules and regulations that they have to abide by, and they're well mannered.
yeah,
And it was it was a good thing for me to actually get out of, like, when I got out on holidays, to actually go and visit my friends and all that have got kids, because you actually get to see, yes, there is the other side, and kids are well brought up, and hashtag not all kids. That's probably
yeah,
and not all parents. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things to put into it.
yeah,
But you're dead right, Damo. If it needs more responsibility needs to put on some parents, I think, to
yeah,
ensure that kids are brought up better, because anybody with half a brain can have a kid, but only a really good mother and father can be a parent. So
mm,
um, I think, yeah,
no,
mate. I think it was time to move on anyway. What do you
yeah,
reckon?
yeah. I'm sick of
Yeah.
youth crime. I'm getting angry just thinking about it.
Mate,
Yeah,
I'll just touch on this one. This one will be another quick one too, because, and look, for all you traffic cops out there, we're not smashing you. But look, this guy actually says he's pretty good. He's a truck driver. He's listened to all our episodes. He's really liking them, and he spends. I think he does about 4,000 kilometres a week on the road. So there's probably not enough of us talking to listen to, and I'm glad he likes listening to us. But Peter, mate, big shout out to you. Thanks for getting in contact with us. And he just asked. He said, like, sometimes the heavy vehicle task force really talk down to him. Like, he said he's really good making sure his logbook's up to date and all that sort of thing. And mate, all I can say, Peter, it's like cops. It's actually any industry. Truck drivers, you get some really shit truck drivers. People that think they're above what they do, and there's nothing different whether it's in traffic police, whether it's in main roads, whether it's in the police force itself, whether it's in prosecutions. you get people that have an attitude problem, and I think some people. What's a small man syndrome? Well, some people think they get a badge or get some. You call it the librarian syndrome, I think, Damo.
Oh yeah,
Don't
but
you?
that'll probably offend a few people. I might go into that. No, but look, I think I get it, and obviously the vast majority of it, dealings with, and they're fine. But I think what happens is some people lack the emotional intelligence to realise how to temper authority in the correct
Yeah,
way. Um, there's no reason to be abusive. When you look at tactical police, they will yell dynamic tactical commands, but generally speaking, you don't just abuse somebody. Like it's not. You don't treat people badly. Negotiators. I was involved in lots of critical incidents where we're talking to scum of the earth who are, kidnapping people or have done really bad things and are now refusing to give up to police and threatening with violence and all the rest of them. We didn't. We didn't abuse them. We would communicate with them and get them to resolve the issue. So I think you're talking about heavy vehicle regulator enforcement. So I don't know whether he's talking about police or the NHVR, the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator guys there.
yeah.
I'm not.
I think, yeah, I think he was more talking about. Well, for me, it seems like main roads, or yeah, what do you call them?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's the
um,
National Heavy Vehicle Regulator. So they've nationalised what used to be the old Scalies. So
yeah,
look, some people just don't handle authority well. They don't understand that you can still communicate and still do your job and still enforce the regulation that you're trying to enforce
yeah.
without abuse, without putting people off. And it just comes down to individuals. It's not everyone, not everyone should be probably doing that job, but
No,
yeah, that's how it is. And yeah,
I
from my
yeah,
point of view, there's never a reason to be abusive. Like your job, if there's infringements detected or anything like that, your job is to just detect and enforce the infringements. It's not, you know, it's
yeah.
who are you to talk down to somebody? So it's no,
Well, and that's right. And I know there's traffic cops actually measure their ability to communicate on how many complaints they get, because people probably generally are going to complain against poor old traffic cops, but there are some traffic cops that basically hardly get any complaints, if any at all.
yeah.
Um,
Well, I
and
already mentioned we ran into him in Darwin. My old mate Tin Man.
yes,
He wrote thousands of tickets and gave out yellow stickers left, right, and centre. And he just was pleasant about it. Well, he said, "Oh, look, it's a bit unfortunate, but this is what's happened." Bang, bang, bang. He'd just go about his business, get hardly any complaints.
yeah,
And the
yeah,
reason was he was just pleasant. He just went about his business in a pleasant manner and communicated with humans. And I think that's just life. It's good to be able to do that. Obviously, some people can't, but look,
yeah,
I understand. I had run-ins with people who were just terrible, terrible communicators. But yeah, I think a lot of it just comes down to that individual on that day. But if you're like you said, he's obviously got his logbooks and everything up to date. It just can leave a bad taste in your mouth. You're doing the right thing, and some
yeah.
government official is treating you like rubbish. It's just not. I don't think it's good enough. But anyway,
No,
it does
I
happen,
agree.
unfortunately. So
Yeah. And look, I mean, I will actually say this is so. Just after I left the place, I think, all right. No, I was still in the place, and I went to visit mum and dad, and I was just driving up to Gary Junction, and anyway, this I think he wasn't a traffic cop, but he was just a local cop, and he was doing an RBT, and stopped off the side of the road, and such a pleasant guy. Just had a chat with him. Blah, blah, blah. I didn't mention I was a police officer or anything. There was no reason to do anything like that. But just his mannerism was so good, and I actually drove straight up to mum and dad's, and I got onto QPS straight away, and I put in a good report about him,
yeah,
because I think people are so quick to make a complaint, but very few are so up there to actually put in something good about somebody. Because if you do get treated well by the cops, do that, because it will get put on their file. Um, as well, which will help them out later on down the track. So if they get a number of complaints, they can sit there and go, well, hold on, this person, these people here, he treated them really well, she treated them really well.
yeah,
So if you do run into and have a good communication with a cop, or good run in with a cop, then yeah, definitely put something on, send something in. All police jurisdictions have something. You just have to look them up on the internet, and you can actually send in a good report about any police officer.
yeah.
So I encourage you to do that, because it will go on their file, and it will help them down later on the track. What do you reckon there, Damo?
No, that's right, mate. It was pretty rare, but I got a couple of comments and stuff like good, good. What's the word? Not complaint, compliments. I got some compliments while I was in there, and they lift you up. Yeah, your complaints come all the time. Crooks make complaints just to try and slow you down, but that's
Yeah,
fine. But yeah, the compliments are definitely. taken on board and appreciated. So if you do have a good experience, good interaction, let them know. So
Yeah, definitely.
yeah,
Mate, now I have got another one. So this was sent through as a hypothetical, and just asked if this is basically about a DV incident, and it's the I won't say who it's actually from, but I'll just say I'll just read this out, and this is what they sent through. The question best seen as a hypothetical, and only with the events presented. In Queensland police arrive at a domestic. Female officer is talking to the female. The male officer approaches the male. No one is injured, but there are smashed windows. The male officer asks the man to sit down, but the man is not compliant and verbally keeps asking them both to sit together. The male officer asks the male to turn around, and he handcuffs the man behind his back. The male lets him. The male officer asks the male to come outside. They step outside. The officer pulls out a garden chair roughly and says firmly, "Can you sit down, as I've asked you?" The male is putting up no physical resistance, but says, "Don't pull the chair out like that." And the male officer approaches him, the male says, "Don't bully me." The male officer conducts a transition to ground stabilize, I think he means there, and during the process says, "You are now coming in for obstruction." The male faces down on the ground, does not retaliate, but says, "You were hurting me," and the officer says, "That's a whole idea." In the police car, the male and male officer are talking together. During the conversation, they're discussing a hobby of the male, and the officer says that it's costly but will be chicken feed for someone with the man's occupation. The officer comments that the male's occupation is the best paid job for a university graduate in Australia, and that male is working 3 days a week because he can. The male officer has turned off his camera during this part of the conversation, and he basically just goes on. He says, "I know there's always complexities, but could you possibly answer the hypothetical question as if there are no other variables? Is this the appropriate police management for a domestic violence call out?" I guarantee, Damien, you probably got the same questions as I do. What do you reckon?
Well, yeah, hypotheticals are always interesting. So look, police don't always get it right.
No.
The other thing is people on the other end of these things quite often exaggerate their innocence. So,
Yes.
look, once again, I wasn't there. It's a hypothetical, so I can only comment on the information I've got. But I'm kind of guessing it's coming from a person's experience with an actual
Yep.
interaction with Queensland Police, by the sound of it.
Yep.
So, I mean, you're looking officer safety's number one all the time. So if you're going to turn up and you're dealing with a situation where, I mean, police have been called to what appears to be a domestic violence incident. Domestic violence incidents are extremely dangerous, as we've mentioned before. For police, they can turn very, very violent very quickly because you're dealing with a lot of emotion, and people can react quite irrationally and quite violently at times, and that happens all the time. Police don't know the people involved. They don't know anything about you except whatever information's on the computer system, which could be minimal. They certainly can detain people to investigate, and they can restrain them any way they need to in order to make sure it's safe. So if someone needs to be handcuffed and detained while an investigation is carried out, there's no issue with that. The legislation varies from state to state. Look, that the male police officer making comments about the person there, well, yeah, that's unprofessional. You normally would keep it professional. There's no need to. The whole idea is to de-escalate these situations. You can have a
Yep.
conversation and have your opinion about that person in the privacy of you and your partner in the vehicle later on, but you don't need people overhearing things. When you got to get to the bottom of something, and I mean, you said something about the male wanted to be seated with the female. Well, that's never going to happen. You're investigating a domestic. The first thing you do is separate them so they can speak
Yep.
freely without the other person there. So that's never going to happen. They're always going to be separated. The very first thing is ensure the safety of everyone there. Separate the parties. That's the very first thing you do.
Yep.
And then make sure there's no danger, and then it's investigate the matter and go from there. Collect evidence. Make an assessment on the evidence that you can find out from the investigation and the inquiries you're conducting just at the beginning, the initial inquiries. And then from there, the legislation and general orders will dictate what you do. if you believe on reasonable grounds there's offences or possible domestic violence, even if there's the inability to prove it in court, it may be that the victim or the potential victim has said that this happened, but I don't want to do anything about it. Well, because domestic violence orders are civil orders, they can be given under hearsay evidence and tested in court later. So, you may have it's there's a very strong leaning to take action to take out a domestic violence order, and the reason those general orders and SOPs are written is they're written in blood. That's why.
Yep.
And a lot of them come from recommendations from coroners and things like that. So domestics are very complex. Do individual police officers get to the end of their tether and act unprofessionally at times, especially when there's conflict? Yes. That's why there's disciplinary proceedings, and yeah, police aren't always perfect. As simple as that. I mean, it's very easy to smash the police and things like that. We all know that, but
Yep.
that's what we're sort of doing, is trying to humanise it and show that, well, hang on, this is what they're going to, and we're not justifying poor behaviour.
No.
Was the force excessive? Well, we don't have enough information whether the force was excessive to ground stabilise somebody or not. But
Yeah.
who knows? The fact is, all of that would have been caught on body worn camera, and someone else can make a determination.
But
Um,
mate, yeah, that's exactly right. That's a very good point there, Damo. And I think you touched on a couple of things there. I sorry to cut you off, mate.
no,
I
you're right.
so like and he said without variables, but so just to remind everybody, officers, whenever they use force, it doesn't matter whether it's handcuffing, doesn't matter whether it's like ground stabilizing, escorting to the car, and all that. They've got to be able to justify why they do what they do. And without being at the incident, there can be pre-attack indicators which could basically lead to this sort of stuff happening as well, that aren't mentioned. So you've got to think along those lines. I think you're right, Damo. Like you said, you've got to keep it professional when chatting to them and all that sort of thing. Um, there is a certain time you will chat to people, but that's usually with more serious offences and all that, when you want to gain a bit of information. However, like I said, domestics are very, very, very emotional, and so people will act outside their normal, I suppose, areas of what they do, or emotionally. Um, if the other thing is also, it said at the start, they rock up and the female's talking to the female, and the male's talking to the male. That's like you said, and you separate them because you want to make sure you get the information. Now, there's a couple of things there. They said there was broken windows. Just because there's broken windows, I know, not all men. Hashtag. Bloody hell, I'm getting in these hashtags, mate. But that can be done. I've been to plenty of domestics where the female has actually broken the windows as well as the male. So it's quick not to jump to conclusion about who's the actual offender in the damage and all that sort of thing. But yeah, mate, I think, yeah, without any more information, if I was prosecuting this case, I'd want to actually read the statements from the police and look into the
And,
justification
and
as to
that's
why.
why commenting on these hypotheticals is bloody hard, because we've got, I mean, that was a grade 1 level amount of information, and we're going to seek out university level.
Yeah,
So I'm going to be asking a
yeah,
hell of a lot more questions, and it sounds like um, someone wasn't entirely happy with an interaction and all the rest of it. And
yep,
like I say, in my experience, and not always, but a lot of the time, people will massively downplay their behaviour when
oh,
police have acted in a
definitely,
certain way.
yep,
I mean, the fact that there's broken windows, well, straight away, how did the windows break? You're
yep,
going to ask them questions, without going into further context. As well, you need all that context. All that information is relevant. What do you need? Have you got busted? Is there blood pouring out of his fist because he's just punched out all the windows? Has she
yep,
broken the windows and is trying to frame him? Who knows? This is the thing.
yep,
You're going to ask 1,000 questions, and it's not going to be specific. You're going to be, so tell me what's happened, and tell me
yep,
more about that. Explain what you mean by that. Describe how that window got broken. Show me where this happened. Blah blah blah. So you're not you're not giving them information. You're extracting information from them,
yep,
and from that information, you make a determination. So I mean, the fact that there's broken windows, the police have been called to something. I mean, there's a
yep.
reason the police are there. They haven't just randomly picked a house. So
No,
yeah, there's a lot of things to think about, and it's it sounds like a very simplistic hypothetical situation that I think by the sound, and look, I could be wrong, but from the sound of it, it's like try and justify why the cops did this. And it's like, well, no, because we don't have any information. And did the cops do the
Yep.
wrong thing? Possibly. I don't know. Did the bloke do the wrong thing? Possibly. I don't know. I don't have enough information. I need to ask a lot more questions. This is why we
Yes.
investigate. So we never jump to conclusions. I don't know anything. What is the old
No.
saying? Assume nothing, believe nothing, check everything.
Exactly.
So
Yeah. And yeah, mate, you're dead right there. And look, I think that's probably a good reason to actually show how we investigate. Well, we've got this amount of information, but we've got to check and balance each bit of it. So you go through in intricate detail into each one to see how the events occurred.
yeah,
And
I
I'll
used
say,
to. A saying I used to have when people, especially as a supervisor, I'd hear people getting on the radio, especially in major centres, and hitting comms with all these questions, and they're saying we don't have that information, we don't have, and I'd get on there and go, can you just attend and assess? Turn
yep,
up and find out. Like the comms only have so much information. Here's what we've got. Okay, comms don't have any more. No worries. Is that everything you can give us? Can you do names checks on people? Are there firearms? Are there dangerous? Are there alerts? Anything like that?
yep,
If the answer is we don't have the information, there's no more, no more. Righto. So now my job is to turn up and find out what's going on. You're the police officers. You got to turn up and find out. So that's where the whole, we talk about hunter gathering. It's hunt down criminals and gather evidence. Well, gathering evidence is, that's the investigation, that search for the truth, finding out what's gone on in accordance with legislation. So you've got to investigate in such a way that the information you get is admissible in court. So it's there's a bit to it, and you're going to ask a lot of questions, and you're going to get to the bottom of it. And you don't have a team, so we're not turning up to a job like that going, right, well, he's going for this and she's doing that. No, we're going to work out what went on. And the old saying I've mentioned before that I really like is the term disinterested. And it's
yep,
not uninterested. Uninterested means you're not motivated to do the job. Disinterested means you have no interest in the outcome. I don't care what happened here. I'm going to find out what happened. And from the information I gather, I'm going to make sure in my mind and the mind of my partner that we agree on, that this appears to be what's gone on. We've now got evidence in the form of statements or our observations or whatever else. And now we take that information and we use it as we need to. So it's, you quite often just let these things play out.
yep. Yeah,
So,
definitely, mate.
mm,
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't put it better myself. And look, the other thing I'll let people know, I worked as a family and domestic violence officer for quite a couple of years, and I can tell you that I look, I'd hate to say it's well over 50% of people when they actually give information to you in relation to domestic, over 50% of the time there's a lot of false information in there because they
oh yeah,
will cite it so they sound better.
oh
Um,
yeah,
and yeah, so and also, look, people put complaints in about police. I can guarantee you, there's a lot, because police get complaints all the time. But I think I can't remember the figures, Damo, but very minimal do they find out the cop is at fault. So
oh
it's
exactly right, yeah.
yeah,
No, everybody's favourite subject is themselves. So,
yeah,
if
yes,
the police have made a determination that no, and the people might be getting held accountable for their conduct, they don't like
yeah,
that. They might be used to getting their own way, so they thrash out and they make complaints and try and turn the complaint system against the police who've done nothing more than turn up and do their job.
yep,
And that happens all the time. So, it's unfortunately there's not as much accountability in the world as there used to be. When I was growing up as a young bloke, and even probably earlier than me as well, if if a young fella in a pub was being a bit of a smart ass or something like that, he'd probably get punched in the face. Well, that would never happen now. It's very rare for that to happen now. It's
yep,
it's not that old level. You just watch him out there, boy. Or what are you going to do? Like, whack. That sort of doesn't. I mean, it happened. There's still obviously violence in society, but there was that you were held to account for your behaviour a bit back in the day, and that doesn't happen much
yep,
now. Whereas police still have to hold you to account, and without fear or favour, they will just determine what's occurred and put you before the court. Simple as that. So it's one of those things, mate. I think we can move on. Hypotheticals are often difficult.
Oh, they are, and look, I think we explained that one pretty well. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
look, at the end of the day, mate, without more information, we can't really say whether they handled that correctly or not.
No.
Um, but that's what you do. That's why you investigate. That's why you look into these things. Every single incident, every time you get a statement, you go back over and you check it with other people to make sure that that statement that they gave to you is correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's it's part of the checks and balances. But mate, I think we're almost at our time limit, but we have to introduce the second show we're going to release this week.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So
So well, you
when
go.
we first arrived, we headed down to Catherine straight away to catch up with an absolute legend of the job. So commander of Catherine Northern, I think it's Northern Command, is Commander Kylie Anderson. And after this release this afternoon, so after this podcast, an hour later, we're going to release that interview with Kylie. So um, she's a magnificent member up there. She's obviously very high ranking now. We've spoken about her quite a few times before, but yeah, it's a really good interview. A bit of an insight in women in policing as well, especially from the horse's mouth, if you will. So
Yes.
yeah, no, really worth listening to, and she's great value. She's always got members' backs. She's she's got plenty of energy, plenty of experience all over the territory. She's well liked in the community outside policing, and yeah, I think she gave a bloody good interview, a few laughs and some good
Oh,
information. So
yeah.
definitely worth a listen.
Definitely, mate. I'll just add there that I think what one thing I found with Kylie is the fact that she had that authority. It was, she got it. She didn't demand it; it was earned. And one thing I still remember, there's a couple of times when she was a duty super, and I'd have to chat to her about something, and she would, the way she would explain it, go, well, no, Ben, we can't do that for these reasons, and blah blah blah, and you go, yep, not a problem, because that's just the kind of authority she's got. She's straight down the line. She's got a line drawn in the sand, and she delivers information really well. And she's very good at her job. So, and for any women in the police or looking at joining the police, definitely listen in. She's an inspiration, I think, for a lot of females.
Absolutely. Well, mate, that'll probably do us.
I think so, mate. Yeah, well, heading off. Well, you're about to head up to Queensland, aren't you? The
Yeah, about
Sunshine
to
State.
pack the it's my brother's 40th today, actually. So shout out Pete,
Yeah.
happy birthday, Pete. We're going to have a party in Toowoomba tomorrow for his 40th. So yeah, that'll be a good shindig. So yeah, we're going to head up shortly. But mate, as always, it's a pleasure. And everybody will be back. Get in touch with us. Let us know what you want to hear. Yeah, we're happy to do these Q&As. They're always good. We've got a few more irons in the fire. But
Yep.
yeah, get in touch. Let us know what you want to hear about.
Definitely, mate. And yeah, mate, I'll do a shout out to Pete as well. Happy birthday. I see it come up on my Facebook this morning, and I was meant to mention that. Um, so yeah, pretty good, you dad. But mate, otherwise, I hope for any frontline services, I hope your Christmas went off without a hitch. But no doubt it didn't. It always seems to be that those days. So when we get Katie on, we will talk about the Christmas domestic. Um, but yeah, and hopefully everybody has a good New Year's. But Damo, I think that's just about it for us, eh?
That'll do it. We'll see you next week.
All right. See ya.